that is like in everybody's DNA is the difference between profit and interest. Somebody said, Atif, can you explain it to us? And I thought it was like obvious, but it's not that obvious. And I'll explain to you what is the difference. Okay, so little 30-second MBA. Revenue is what is your sales. Revenue, sales, this is synonymous. Okay, revenue is the money you take from your customer. Minus your cost and expenses gives you earnings. Earnings is also known as income, also known as profit. Revenue and profit are not the same thing. You know, I earned this much. We may say that in a sentence, but it's technically, so at the top you've got sales, revenue, these are the things at the top, minus costs and expenses, which are many, and then you've got profit or income or earnings. This is how basic finance works. Now, this is your income statement. So this is the starting point of understanding what profit is. Interest is not, in Islam, it's not the same thing as profit. Yes, you can make a profit using interest, but you know, they say, oh, they're just changing the labels from profit to interest or interest to profit. It's not the same, it's the same thing. No, it's not. And the difference is, when you have profit in Islam, you have an asset or a service sitting between the transactor and the transactee. So there's something in between, and that's the asset and service. Money is not an asset or service in Islam. It is a medium of exchange. So in Islam, we do not confuse or conflate profit and interest. Two completely different things. And the rule of thumb is there an asset or service? Money, for money transactions are not assets and services. This is a very important point. And by the way, I was totally joking and being ironic. I think it doesn't come off well on the camera, but when I said like I got an economics degree from Harvard, that's actually a joke because they teach you all the wrong stuff. All of it is basically wrong. I went to one professor, I'm like, you know what? This is like before I learned about all this riba related stuff. I had my big awakening when my uncle tapped on my shoulder and pointed one of my essays, and he's like, that's riba. I'm like, what's riba? You know, so clearly didn't have a clue then. Now, and then obviously going into investment banking, I could like be, oh, that's why it's so bad. And having been in the belly of the beast and then coming out like completely ignorant, blinkering in the sunlight, realizing, oh my goodness, that's what we've been doing all along. Alhamdulillah, investment banking doesn't directly deal in my jobs, mergers and acquisitions. I did not directly deal in riba, alhamdulillah, according to the fuqaha I asked later on. I didn't have to return any of my comp or anything, but alhamdulillah, I was not involved in riba, but I saw other people doing it, the traders, for instance. But getting back, that is a key distinction, is profit is not interest, and they're not just changing labels. Yes, some people are just changing labels, but it's not always the case. So that's an important thing. So we'll get to your questions, and I'm here until the last person gets up and leaves. So you can leave after your questions are answered. I won't be offended, but inshallah, my job is to outlast you guys. So let's go. Bismillah. Yes. Yes, sir.
On behalf of my daughter, she just started business at UT. And her question, she was supposed to come here but couldn't make it. And she said, is finance the major really haram? Because I'm like, I'm not a finance guy, but I was like, yeah, I don't think so that works because you're going to end up in riba. And she's like, darn it, that's probably the only thing successful left other than accounting, which is what she might pursue. But is it really just by and large haram?
Luckily, I did an undergraduate in finance. My degree was in finance at the business school, and I can answer that question. So if somebody would be so kind as to get me some water. And also, is this being recorded? Because it is, right? Good. Because we intend to like actually distill a lot of these answers into short clips and put them online, available for everybody in future, so that other people can benefit, a broader audience can benefit. The answer is studying finance is not haram, but Graduating with a finance degree will get you into the financial industry, which is 99.9% haram, unless she has her own company or does something on her own or something Islamic with an Islamic financial institution that is actually Sharia compliant. So yeah, I've got 4 kids. I tell all of them, I do not want you guys going anywhere near. Avoid the financial industry and avoid the surveillance industry. Security and surveillance are close, but not the same. Security is to protect, whereas surveillance is to spy. The surveillance industry is spawning a new generation of, spy tactics, spy games, which we can stay away from as Muslims. So we try to avoid the financial industry, but studying it, strictly speaking, is not haram. But inshallah, if she wants, she can start up her own company, and there's plenty of opportunities in the value chain of American Muslims who need media in finance. We don't have any media. We don't have any scholars. Ethica is launching a fellowship program nationally. We are going to we've already contributed about $400,000. We're trying to raise $1 million to basically be able to train 1,000 scholars in this country. So there's a lot of need, there's a lot of demand, and there's a lot of gaps in the value chain in the market. So you don't have to just do financing, you can also do media work, you can do education, training. So there's a lot out there that she can do. But definitely, especially if you're at the bottom starting out, it is impossible to tell, actually, I won't be able to do this transaction. Even though I'm 21, I am not going to do it because you can be that kind of person, and you can certainly go for it, but it's not going to be possible for them to give you too many deals because they're all going to contain, even the VC, PE, venture capital, private equity, they're sort of the same thing. It's like private equity is more later stage, VC is a little bit earlier, and then there's even earlier stage investing. So you can, if you're even part of that, even strictly speaking, they're supposed to make equity investments, which is like direct proprietary capital into purchasing of a company's shares. However, they use a lot of leverage because debt is cheap. Debt is very cheap. Why would you sell something when you can borrow it for 7%? So, or whatever the prime is these days. So this is why it's not advisable to go into the financial industry. But what she's doing right now, I've never heard anyone say that studying finance, studying interest is not okay. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No bias here, but absolutely. I mean, we absolutely have every conviction, and I say this completely without any bias, that there is a reason Ethica's CIFE is #1 on Google and AI. And it is, if you search best Islamic finance certification, Ethica CIFE is going to come up at the top. We've won 80 awards. And the reason I think is because we are showing Islamic finance as the superior choice, not just like an alternative, walk into Baskin Robbins, you got 31 flavors, it's one of them. No, the other flavors are actually toxic. Conventional finance doesn't work. It hasn't worked. It's never worked. It only creates one crash after the next. And even if you go to a place as racy as Dubai, if you remember in Dubai, when the global financial crisis happened, the conventional banks got just finished. But the Islamic banks were still standing. Why? Because they actually had asset ownership. So they actually could weather the storm and be like, okay, there wasn't a default. You can't do a run on an Islamic bank the same way you can in a conventional bank. You can have some kind of a run, but it's not the same thing. So I remember in Jordan, when I ran out of options with the Islamic bank, I was like, okay, well, there's no way I can do this transfer quickly enough without opening a conventional bank account, and the fuqaha permitted. So I opened one just for like a few days and did the transaction. And when I'd go to the Islamic bank to withdraw the money, they'd literally take it out and give it to me, no questions asked. The conventional bank would be like, they would be in like a panic. They're like, are you sure you want to take out the money? Are you sure you don't want to wait? We've got this product, we've got that. Why? Because of the capital reserve requirement. It's like 5% or maybe even less. They don't actually have to have the cash there, and they don't. What they do is they lend it. And they're so greedy, they need to lend it overnight, they need to lend it every hour, this and that. So it is just endless riba upon riba. Riba is basically nobody does simple interest. Simple interest is I give you 100, you give me 110, and we call it a day. It's compounded interest. It's interest upon interest. And that's why it goes up exponentially. So no, is there anything in this world that grows as exponentially as riba? Trees don't. The fastest growing sub-Saharan African countries, do you know what the growth rates there are? Population growth rates? Anyone hazard a guess? 5%. So how do you keep up with like riba? That 5% is probably below prime. What's prime these days? 7%? So it's not 5%. So that is, yeah, go ahead.
Finance major, but I work for a company that does not have a high debt, or their debt ratio is pretty low. What about working in-house in finance, like managing financial planning and analysis on how they invest their capital?
The Muftis told me that for is this job okay questions, they have to send in the exact description because it's so like dependent on what you're doing. You know, the gamut runs from security guard to like CEOs and everything in between. So what's your level of involvement with the execution? So email me, you've got my email. You got it? No, I'm saying in terms of answering your question, do you want to email me contact@ethica.institute, and we'll get the Muftis to answer it because it depends, yeah.
My question is to understand what is the principle that Islam allows when it says that you cannot give money to someone without interest. What option in principle does it allow if someone wants to give money to someone?
Sure. So here's the 1-minute MBA. There's 4 kinds of finance. Virtually all finance falls under one of these 4 categories. They are debt, debt, equity, trade, and lease. Debt you all know about, bonds, IOUs, interest-based loans, conventional banking, that's debt. Equity, it's like stocks, shares, corporations. Trade, buying and selling, Prophet ﷺ was a trader. Lease, renting out. All we're doing is taking out the debt, the interest-based debt, and you're left with 3 forms of finance that have been practiced for hundreds, thousands of years: equity, trade, and lease. And you can make virtually everything can be financed. Not everything, but a lot of things. The kind of common retail and consumer banking items that we're all familiar with: cars, homes, hopefully education as well, one day inshallah in this country. These things can be financed through equity, trade, and lease. So that's how Islamic finance makes money: equity, trade, and lease. Yes?
Jazakallah khairan for your time and coming in for this information. Before I leave, I just want to make sure I understood correctly. So I understood that we have to preserve our wealth, and the idea was, to buy gold, silver, or real estate. But opening 401k, it's not the idea we are involved in, just not to save. We want to grow the wealth. So am I understood correctly that those 3 things that was the idea to pursue is not just preserving, also is the way to have the growth of the wealth?
So what's the question?
The question is
when it comes to the 401k, I don't like to advise people anyway. I'll just tell you what I did. And I just basically sold it within a year or 2 of getting it because I didn't want to wait. So I sold it completely, and I immediately bought gold with it. I was like 23, 24 years old, so I bought gold with it. And it was like $250. It went up to $600. I thought it was a real genius, almost tripling, and now it's like $4,500. So should have kept it. But I would say you can actually, so we don't have to, as Muslims, preserve our wealth. We just do it because having money is a lot better than not having money in most situations, and you can actually practice your deen very effectively if you don't have money. And one of the things Sheikh Nu often advises is, how do you know how much money to have? And he says, when you have too little and you're thinking about it, and when you have too much and you're thinking about it. So the middle way is, and a good barometer is, how's your prayer? If in the prayer you're thinking about the 401k, maybe it's time to reassess. But I would say that wealth preservation can happen better through gold and silver and real estate, especially in this market, than in any other time in history, because of all of the market fundamentals I've already gone through, those 4 or 5 things. That is, so yeah, don't worry, you can get income and return from gold and silver and real estate, especially real estate. You can get a property and rent it out. However, you can't have the same level of preservation with institutional paper. So that's just a reality. Yes?
I have 2 questions.
Osama's first question.
I have 2 questions.
Osama, mashallah, he organized this whole thing.
Sorry, what if, you don't have that much money to spend on, an ounce of gold is 4,500 now. Let's say if you don't have that much.
So a gram of gold is about, I don't know, how much is a gram of gold? $100? 108? Yeah, so you can get a gram of gold. They sell grams of gold, so you can get a gram. A gram is literally like, it's like a dime or something. So you can always get it, and people will happily accept it somewhere in the world. As long as there's Jews and jewelry, there is gold. And don't think either of those are going away anytime soon. So your wealth is safe with what history has shown us in the last 6,000 years. And I think it'll continue until the end of time. Yes, Sidi Osama.
I have 2 questions. The first one is sort of maybe a simple, basic question. With regards to gold and silver, do you recommend any sort of particular split? And then is there you mentioned, that obviously there's going to be charges if you're going to buy physical gold. You're not going to get the spot price, or silver. Is there a range that we would say is acceptable?
So the experts that I listen to are saying that and this is the advice for myself, take it or leave it, is right now 50% gold, 50% silver, and when silver gets to $400 an ounce, go to 100% gold. So this is and I listen to a lot of talks and stuff about these things, and this is like non-Muslims, like you can listen to like Lynette Zhang, you can listen to Michelle Marquardt, you can listen to maybe even David Ramsey. These are people who are talking about these kind of things. So yeah, I would, and as far as the premium that you pay for gold and silver, that will vary according to the demand. So at one point in Jordan, it was cheaper to buy silver than the world spot price. And at another time, it was about 30% higher because suddenly everybody wanted it. So it can vary, and also by location. But I think Costco is like pretty much like your staple provider here. Where's the Costco mint coins? Where are they minted? Are they Fort Knox or something? What are they? You don't know? Okay.
What's the approximate markup for
It varies so much from like.
In the thousands or the hundreds?
No. If it's like for gold, I've seen it as low as like $100, and I've seen it as high as like $200-300 per ounce. So that's 4,500 average. Maybe now it's less or something. 4,500 plus 100 or 200, and trust me, that's not bad because it's it's just I don't know what 100 over 4,500 is, but it's not a huge premium. And you pay premium for mutual funds, you pay them for stockbrokers, you pay them for stocks, you pay them for everything. So there's that. And for silver, I've seen it vary as much as like per kilo. A kilo, I don't know how much it is right now, but back a few months ago, it was about $3,000, I think. and you're paying about anywhere from $0 to $300 per kilo. So it varies quite a bit. Yeah.
Sorry, I did have one other question.
Yes, sir.
Which is it's a little bit different, and I don't know if you necessarily just want to hear your thoughts, I guess. We know in Islam we have a very Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks in the Quran about heavily censuring people who take the wealth of others, and people, this whole system, right? This whole we're talking about, basically exploiting people and stealing wealth, and we also understand the great merit and benefit of giving our wealth and of freeing a slave and things like this. What are your thoughts on sort of using what Islam has to teach about finance and about money as a means of da'wah to people? I mean, we see everybody is suffering financially. And I've just recently been thinking that this might be, when people see what the Quran, what Islam has to say about finance, that this could be a powerful tool. Everybody knows that this is an issue. Everybody, people are saying eat the rich and all these things, right? We have the solution here. What are your thoughts on that?
The average American owes over $7,000 in credit card debt. The average American card holder owes over $7,000 in credit card debt. If you can relieve them of their debt, they'll love you for it. So, they say, they get us with bombs, we get them with biryani. We can also get them with debt relief. So I think the best thing you could do, there's plenty of cash out there. There's plenty of wealthy Muslims. Muslims globally are the wealthiest community. Like, nobody even comes close. Forget the Vatican or the Zionists or anybody. The Muslims have huge amounts. Like, one city at one point, Abu Dhabi, had $1 trillion of cash. There's like sovereign wealth funds. There are trillions of dollars. Saudi, Qatar, the hydrocarbon centers, they have trillions of dollars of cash just sitting there from their oil reserves. Not only the cash, we have tons of oil. Oil is right now more valuable. Water will be more valuable than oil at one point, but right now it's oil and gas. That's why we're having all these wars. It's because of what's in the Persian Gulf. This light sweet crude oil is so easy to refine that you can practically put it into your car. Not like the stuff they have here. You've got the tar sands in Alberta, and you've got the Gulf oil here. It doesn't even come close to light sweet crude. So we are extremely wealthy. And it's just a matter of, they asked me in Dar es Salaam Seminary, what should we do? Set up institutions. Have a national fellowship program to train scholars, 1,000 scholars for 1,000 communities in America. Have a fund, a relief fund for Muslims and non-Muslims, debt relief. Have a gold group just locally, just so you can buy and sell. Have walkable communities. I live in a walkable community. There's nothing like walking next to your buddy to the masjid compared to like driving and holding the keys while you're like listening to the guy and one foot's pointed toward your car. It's not the same thing. Even Steve Jobs, he created Walter Isaacson's biography. There's, we read books. We're Muslims, we read books. We don't like doom scroll or watch TV or watch TikTok. People don't watch TV anymore. They watch TikTok. We don't waste our time. Read books, write books. This is the kind of things that we should be doing. So in terms of institutionally, if you have the ability to buy some land and build a few properties on it, it doesn't have to from the helicopter it looks like a tulip or something. It can be like something organic. There's a great book called Pattern Language by Christopher Alexander that talks about urban planning and architecture. You can read things like that. That's how we actually use, that book we use to build our house. So you actually have walkable communities. So I was giving an example of Jobs. Walter Isaacson's biography mentioned how when he created the Apple headquarters, he intentionally put departments on opposite sides of the atrium so that people would be forced to interact in the middle because he knew it was good for business for the design guy to meet the engineering guy, go bowling, and then learn something about new. something new. For instance, you know how like when you on a screen, it like sort of moves at the edges, like when you press it, it moves a little bit. It's that organic feel of like moving. That's actually an app created by a kid who came up to Steve Jobs. He's like, I can do something that makes it feel more human and organic. So how did that, what's the right word? No, it's not really serendipity, but how does that thinking coalesce? It happens through communities. Walking to the masjid, there's a secret in it. You know, you see the, mashallah, the guys in the front, you see the people who are going to the masjid, you see this, the masjid is an excellent community center. So if you can build communities around that, even if you can just buy homes around and walk to the masjid, it creates institutions and individuals who can be strong. So this is the kind of place where we can put our money, not into like, you know, whatever the next, whatever craze is, or even into hoarding gold and silver. We just keep gold and silver as an alternative to our existing investments, not necessarily as a means of just like being more greedy. So yeah, we should keep our money moving, very much so. And zakat is the easiest way. If we all paid zakat correctly, there would be no poverty in the world, Muslim or non-Muslim. We did the study with an Oxford mathematician and published it. So yeah, you can definitely move that money and really help the communities. Yes.
Yeah, on the topic of purifying wealth, you mentioned even unpermissible transactions, there's like a purification system. What does that look like? Could you expand on that?
Yeah, it depends on the investment. So, for instance, Mufti Taqi Usmani mentions 5% interest income needs to be purified for equities, this kind of thing, but it depends. But in general, if you are in riba now and you want to get out, for instance, you have a conventional mortgage and you want to get out of it, first step is you go to an Islamic financial institution, I mentioned those three, and try to go for a refinancing. That's not possible, then you can sell the house. Oh, I'll lose some money. Yeah, you'll lose some money, but it's a lot better than losing your life in this life and the next. So you sell the house and let's say you have to rent now. What do you do with the riba that you have paid? That you can't do anything about, the fuqaha say. But as far as the riba that you have earned, you must get that out of your wealth. So calculate it to the best of your abilities and get it out of your wealth. And how do you get it out of your wealth? You give it to the poor Muslims who are otherwise zakat eligible. So zakat is the purification of your money. This is not zakat. This is you giving your money away to get it out of yourself. And sometimes I ask the Mufti, I'm like, well, isn't this dirty money you're not really supposed to give? Isn't it supposed to be like save the earth, save the whales type thing? In the Hanafi school, it is permissible to give it to somebody who is otherwise zakat eligible, but not as zakat, and not with the intention of reward, because you're not getting a reward, you're just running from a flamethrower. So, yes, sir.
When it comes to businesses, or even, let's say, I may have my house and I say, okay, fine, if it's free and clear, I don't want a homeowner's insurance. However, I'm going to buy another house and I'm going to rent it out to you. Now, you're a rentee. You may damage it. The only, once upon a time, I think they had I forget the Islamic term for that insurance product. They had that, but they closed. I have to get insurance because who knows what the rentee would do. Similarly, if I open up a business, I'm contributing to what they call triple net over here. I'm contributing to the owner's insurance. And in addition to that, I have to buy business insurance to be able to operate. So insurance by its very nature, unless it's like, darura, like health insurance or those kind of things, is pretty black area. I don't want to say gray area, but it tends to be towards the black. So what does one do in that kind of situation?
So in that situation, the question is basically like, what do we do about insurance? So we haven't checked it out, but there's something called Takaful America. So we don't know, just ask the Sharia board if they have approved these products and then you can contact me and we can go further and look into it. So besides the Kafel America, the general ruling is that you are not allowed to take conventional insurance. The Kafel is cooperative Islamic insurance. The conventional insurance is haram. It's worse than the banks because it's not only riba, but it's also gharar and all this. So, however, if it is a legal requirement, you may take it to the minimum extent necessary. So when I owned a property in Toronto, I did it to the absolute minimum, and to the legal extent. And when you start getting into like extra stuff, no, that's not allowed. And if there's premiums that, let's say you've paid something and then you've earned something back, you can't earn more than you've paid. So that's also got to be equalized. So this is the general ruling. For specific products, it really depends on where you live, what country you live in, what are the laws, this and that. So contact me and let me know the specifics, and we'll get the Mufti to look at it.
Because even masajids over here end up having insurance.
If it's a legal requirement, that's a different matter. I don't think they will let you have a property in this country without insurance.
I mean, I know people who have their houses, but commercial properties, businesses.
Yeah, I would rather if it was a legal requirement, I'd go to the Kafel America before I go to anybody else, because it is still an option, and at least they're trying to be Islamic. It's worth looking into. So that's a starting point. Yes, ma'am. Walaikum salam. Traditional what?
So in terms of like emergency funds, like I'm a revert, so I followed like traditional financial advice and started like a high yield savings account. That would be haram, no?
Yes,
Okay.
interest finance. And first of all, welcome to the Deen, alhamdulillah. Nothing like it. Best thing going. And nowadays, the biggest thing that people who have come to Islam need is support. So I don't know how long how long has it been since you've been in the Deen?
A year and some change.
A year? Okay, so recent. So the most important thing is that you try to have excellent sohbah, which means sohbah means companionship. So, and the internet is not a community. There's no online communities. Online community is an oxymoron.
Yeah.
So you should try to cultivate relationships with sisters in the masjid in the neighborhood. That's really important, because a lot of people who come into the reverts, there's this initial flurry of excitement for the first few days and hours, but then suddenly everyone goes away and you're alone. And your family may be giving you a hard time and this and that. So that's a digression, but it's a necessary digression, because a lot of people are coming to Islam, especially women, because it is the only religion that truly respects women. And you can try me on any religion. I'm not even like one of those, Zakir Naik expert type guys, but any religion, it's really, really, subhanAllah, women have really a bad situation. They're not protected in ways that Islam protects a woman. So the interest-based anything, such as the high-yield instruments that you're talking about, are not permissible. And I don't know how much of the talk you're able to attend, but if you want to have somewhere that gives you wealth preservation, I've already talked about that at length, and also in terms of like getting an income, there are Islamic financial institutions that do provide musharaka and mudara-based products that do provide a small income. But I don't know how much money we're talking about here. I don't need to know. But if, a great place to get income is rental property. And you can find them for less expensive areas and still earn a decent income. Real estate is a good way to go. But if you don't need the income and you just want wealth preservation, physical gold and silver, excellent. And you can start really inexpensively at $100 there. So hopefully that answers. But yeah, get out of the high yield stuff.
Sukla hai.
Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Going slow.
Just on the, you mentioned ownership of real estate as an asset that you recommend owning for wealth preservation or growth. Do you have any recommendations of how to enter for somebody who's on the younger side? Like
Enter what?
like own some, have ownership in rental property.
Oh, rental property.
Yes, or any kind of real estate. I'm
So
not sure where to start.
there's something called a REIT. REIT is REIT, stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And I haven't looked into it, but there may be Islamic REITs out there, and that enables you to get into owning something because maybe you don't have the money to own a whole place of your own. If you do, obviously, you can. Personally speaking, when I got my first job, I did not have any money, and I just saved up quickly, and within a year, I was able to save up $20,000. And my dad, because I didn't want to rent, I thought rent was like literally like throwing money away. I'm like, I'm not going to see any equity out of this. It's just pure utility, and that's not sufficient. So I said, I'll put in, so my dad put in 80%, 20%. I got a studio apartment, about the size of Mimber, and it's like this little alcove, and it was $100,000 in. I didn't want to live in Manhattan. I did it for 2 months, and I was like, get me out of here. So I went across the Hudson River, got a place, and made a tidy little profit. Bought it for my dad little by little, then got a 2-bedroom place. So you can start with a small place. You don't need to have a big car, big car, big house, and big wife. You can just start off small and modest and just go from there. And you can have like a small studio place and own it outright. Or if you want to go even cheaper, I actually looked into this. You can buy a 2-bedroom cabin. Okay, it doesn't have to be a cabin like a wooden cabin, but like a $100 a square foot or less prefab type place, and you have your own land. And Texas must have some seriously cheap land. And I don't know if you work remotely or not, but at one point in Toronto, I was able to get something for like $30,000 for the property, for the structure, for like a 2-bedroom structure. I was just planning to use this as like a summer home type thing, but if I went to live there, you could get like $75 a square foot for just, I don't know what the rates are here, but you could get that, and then the acre was gonna cost $5,000. So you could actually have like for $35,000. So, and if I was like a young guy, that would actually be a dream. Most people would rather own a small place than rent a big place. So it is something you can think about as well. Land, buying land and building on it, these things. But I don't know at what stage, I don't need to know your private details, what stage you're at. There's a lot of, young guys these days who are driving some pretty nice cars. I've just come from California. Subhanallah, man, I walked into this one talk, and there was like, it was like a super mansion, and there was like Ferraris and Porsches outside, and inside there was a row of guys praying. I was like, wow, these guys have done well for themselves. So it is possible to be young and wealthy, but one of the best ways is when you're young, there's the 3 biggest expenditures are rent, tax, as a percentage of your comp, rent, tax, and what I call wasting on little stuff. That $2,000 a year cappuccino habit that I mentioned, the $50 every few days on restaurants, or $20 even when you can make. I always bore people with the example I give. Nobody's busier than me right now. I'm like driving and doing a 40-city talk, but I'm there with my hot plate, salmon, vegetables, and potatoes, in the hotel room, plugging it in and doing it. Why? Because restaurant food is such low quality. You know, the three worst things known to man: refined carbs, which includes sugar, vegetable oil, and MSG. You could save a ton of money just by eating really well. And I'm eating like salmon, which is like, you know, $20 a fillet. But let's say you eat just like lentils and, you know, a little meat here and there, chicken, whatever. You're down to like $5 a meal. And I don't think there's any meal with any protein in it that's worth that's cost $5. Even if you go to McDonald's, you're going to spend, you know, an astronomical $13 on a nonsense filet fish sandwich, which I was subjected to at one of these drives where I couldn't find anything. So it is, by the way, McDonald's, the vegetable oil contains beef fat and not just replicated. So for the hash browns, sorry, brief commercial break, the hash browns and the French fries, those French fries we all love so much, don't even look in their direction because they're not vegetarian. However, the fillet of fish is using vegetarian vegetable oil, but that's just an aside. So that's where I would start, is that number 3 thing. You can't do much about rent, you can't do much about tax, but you can do a lot about that wastage, that little, you know, that $2,000 a year habit, and you add those $2,000 and you suddenly have a viable chance at owning property in 2-3 years. So this is your thinking, that you know, I want to own tangible assets rather than this ephemera that we're living in today. I think we're out of questions. Welcome. Jazakumullah khair to everybody, and inshallah we'll meet again. I hope to come back and see you guys. So see you on email, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.